Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast with Ron and Kristen, where leadership meets entertainment. This podcast features stories with names and certain aspects that have been changed to keep submissions private. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast, where leadership meets entertainment. I'm your co-host, Kristen Sokolov, joined by my co-host, Ronnie Ward. Ron, how we doing today?
I am doing great. I love when you call me Ronnie. Brings back so many memories.
I love it. I love it. And you guys have to listen to all the episodes to find the episode where we discuss the backstory of why I started calling Ron Ronnie.
Yeah. I still got to come up with a nickname for Kristen. If people want to suggest something, please let me know. Kristen, this is something it's been burning, and then I find out this is where we're in sync. I find out it's been, at the top of your mind as well.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to discuss the Netflix documentary. It's sparked a lot of conversation across the country. It's called The Crash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. This story involves Mackenzie Sharilla, an Ohio teenager convicted in the deaths of her boyfriend, Dominic Russo, and his friend, Davion Flanagan. And this documentary raises questions about relationships, parenting, an emphasis on parenting, for goodness sake, accountability, social media, and the pressures facing young people today. Yeah,
and, we're sorry to do a spoiler. We'll give you 1 second to turn down your volume.
And go watch.
But the courts determined that there was guilt, and we will talk a little bit about that court process. Mm-hmm. But what we want to focus on is this idea of how important is parenting and how important is a teenager's environment and what you permit as a parent. And trust me, I think every teenager should have to watch that episode. I think it might have an impact. What's your thoughts on it, Kristen, before we dive into this?
Absolutely. I mean, it is what I saw, and this is the overarching theme, I would say, throughout, is her parents were friends. They were not her parents. And to the end of the documentary, they were enabling and trying to be her friend when she really needed that guidance, and she was not getting that.
Yeah, I usually cringe when I hear parents saying, me and my daughter's best friends, or me and my son are best friends. And I'm like, really? Mm-hmm. That's interesting. But we'll get to that.
Yes, we will. I would say, when let's talk about friends. This is really what bothered me the most. When the parents become friends instead of parents, one of the most uncomfortable themes, like I just said, is that discussion about boundaries, or in this case, a complete lack of them.
Yeah, and I think, it's really interesting, but I do think a lot of parents, they want to be liked by their children. They want to be considered cool compared to other parents. And I do get that, but I don't think parenting was ever designed to actually be cool or be a popularity contest. No. I think you want to be cooler than so-and-so's parents or whatever. And I get it, but that's not what parenting is, I don't think.
No, it's not. And, I was just like last night, I'm dancing around in the kitchen like a total dork in front of the kids. And am I filtering myself so they like me? No, I'm being my 100% raw self. And they love me and respect me. And, it's so cringe, Ron, what we saw in that documentary. And it's hard because no one wants to be the bad guy, right? And that's in the workplace and in the home. Well,
you've already mentioned it, but we're talking about two dead young men with bright futures because of this. So you can't put a price, you can't put anything on that. And I thought over and over about those poor parents who went through that.
Oh, absolutely.
So you and I have talked a lot about boundaries in business settings, but saying no is a boundary when you are parenting children. That as a parent, as a matter of fact, I'm sure you're the same way, but there's certain things my daughters knew not to even ask because the boundary had already been set, and they knew I was going to stick with the boundary. Children need structure. They need consequences. They need accountability. And your boundaries get eroded if you don't support accountability. In other words, if they cross the boundary and you go, oh, well, the funny one, Kristen, is I know you've heard this, but it's like, if you do that one more time, If you do that one more time and on the 15th time, then the parent gets angry and they do something. So that's not what we're talking about.
Right.
So when boundaries disappear, teenagers often create their own rules, and that's what we saw in the crash. And they don't have the neurological development. We've talked about the frontal lobe and everything. I could not have established my own boundaries and rules when I'm 15 years old. And we won't get too brainiac here, but literally inside the brain, we see over and over the lack of development affects decision making. That's why you look back and go, oh my God, I cannot believe that I did that. Put us a dirty lesson on this, Kristen.
Dirty lesson number 1, being liked by your child is optional. Preparing them for life is not.
Oh, I love that.
Right?
I love that.
It's like,
Take
come
us,
on.
take us down to where culture of feelings over consequences, that seems to be what we're living in now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's another thing I noticed is how many young people today are taught to trust their feelings above anything else.
Yeah, that's become a major cultural change. I was listening to some things where teenagers and Gen Z was complaining about minor things, and then you look back when young men are signing up for war at age 17. And I know that sounds old-fashioned, but think about how far apart that mindset is. And we teach, how many times do you hear it? Even in leadership, follow your heart, follow your passions, and they don't ever put any guardrails on that. And your passions can get you in a lot of trouble.
Absolutely.
Trust your feelings. Do what makes you happy. What do you think the problem is with that?
It's very problematic as a collective. And I was just having a discussion with a friend the other night, and he was telling me what his daughter was going to college for, and I accidentally put my foot in my mouth, and I said, "Oh, let me guess, a psychology degree." And that is exactly what it is. He was like, "Yikes!" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I felt myself like sweating, Ron, because I offended someone that I actually care about." And I'm like, oh, "I'm so sorry," but it's one of those things where it is important to understand, like, the whole fact over feelings, right? Like, that really needs to be the way we approach parenting as well. And we're not seeing enough of that. So like this film that we watched, or I guess it was more of a docuseries, right?
Yeah.
That really pinpoints that. And it was like American culture today was perfectly showcased in a very unfortunate way in this documentary.
Yeah, and a lot of people call it the TikTok culture, and that's really what it was. There was a lot of illegal drugs, just so many things. But Kristen, when I think about that documentary and the things that we saw, the things that happened, all of that is capsulated in, and this is, again, it sounds old-fashioned, but it goes back to the very beginning from childhood up through junior high, where somehow our culture, like, this is one of the greatest lines I've ever heard, and I got to give people credit. They can come up with lines that make you almost believe anything. How many times have you heard this lately, Kristen? My truth.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
I'm going to follow my truth.
I hear it in professional settings as well.
Yeah, so I think that parents are literally teaching that. Well, honey, speak your truth. Well, you're not speaking your truth. You're speaking a lie, and it doesn't align with reality. So I think my truth, we need to start pushing our culture, our children, and understanding that there's truth and then there's lies. Now, I believe there's gray areas in certain situations. We're not, that old-fashioned here. But truthfully, one of the things that I think, even my grandson, we focus on telling the truth more than the behavior. Like, if you lie about this, it's way worse. Speak the truth. Tell the truth.
Yeah.
And because if you lose that, if you lose integrity, Kristen, it's all gone. It's all gone.
It absolutely is. And, coming back to really the theme of what we're talking about, maturity is learning that feelings should be acknowledged but not obeyed blindly, right? And I think that, I see a lot of people, let's think about in the show The Crash that we're talking about. The person, so that the boyfriend, right? Her boyfriend, his parents, do you ever just wonder, Ron, when you were watching that, did his parents ever say, "This girl is trash. Why are you with someone that behaves like this, that acts like this? She treats him very poorly." My husband and I are very much like, we're going to tell our kids exactly what we think about who they're dating. It's not you love who you love and that shit. Sorry, but I hate that.
No,
it's not about that. It's not about your feelings. We need to provide honest, transparent feedback, but then also be able to pinpoint what about that person is problematic and help them see that. My parents did that with me. Like, what is the problem?
So, Kristen, I'm going to throw in a free parenting tip.
Do it.
So, didn't you wonder if you watch her Instagram or her TikTok, she is proudly smoking pot, the arrogance, the behaviors were extreme. Parents, you better check out not only your kids' social media if you allow that, but you better check out their friends, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever it is. You better check out their social media. You have that access now, and you better look at it because it's going to tell you a lot more about that person than what they're going to present right in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Ron, and it's like, just because you want to support your child, I know it's 2026 and we're supposed to let them do whatever the hell they want, right? No, you don't have to endorse poor behavior. And they need to know that you're not endorsing poor behavior. So to Ron's point, you're inspecting what you expect. You have to do those things. Don't be lazy.
But also, if you pop your kid on social media at 12, think about this. We used to compare ourselves to our classmates, right? That was the competition. That was your world.
Sure.
Those people you're in class with. Well, now they're comparing themselves to 1 million people. And it's too much. It's too much for a young person to comprehend. It's too much to live up to. The messages are all mixed. And my second parenting tip, I guess, would be, even goes before the other one, is they need to be very mature before they're allowed to access social media or be on social media.
Absolutely. I mean, you're talking about, what you're saying is so spot on, because it's social media's distortion of reality. I mean, that's what we're seeing a lot of here. And you're talking to a social media influencer. Like, I understand this, right? But I'm also at the age where I wasn't on doing these things at a young age before my prefrontal cortex was fully developed, right? Like, and even with that, there's been maturity that I've needed to, after observing and you become a part of the social media world, you still have to have that reality check every once in a while, no matter what age you are. And this documentary, as we've already talked about, it touches on social media and online imaging quite a bit.
Yeah, it does. The confirmation bias comes into play. So in today's world, it's just like Hollywood now. We have a new Hollywood on social media because it's based on followers. And I've heard people literally go, well, this person does have 1 million followers, but I don't totally agree with it. Like, it's almost like that excuses it. Just because, listen, just because there's a huge following doesn't always mean it's truth or it's healthy for you or whatever that is. But again, it's a reality. So we can stand on our soapbox and talk about it. But that also tells parents who has authority over your children. And it might be the person who has the biggest social media following that may not espouse the same things that you do. I'm sure, Kristen, you guard your kids because I've known you a long time now. And you're a very conscientious parent.
Right.
And how do you balance that, by the way?
Yeah, by making sure I'm not bubble wrapping them, but then I'm making sure that they're discerning at the same time. I give them little pieces of freedom. Like, for instance, they love Roblox, and a lot of parents, especially in the homeschool world, they're very much against it. I see it as a perfect training ground to teach them to look out for certain grooming behaviors, right? So if someone's giving you free Robux, which is how they can go on and buy different things. Why? Why are they doing that? I joke with my kids. The next thing they're going to want is a picture of your behind, and the kids are like, oh my gosh. I'm like, no, I'm serious, guys. I'm serious. So I'm telling them these things. I'm like teaching them what grooming is by giving them that little bit of, it's age appropriate. I have them all set up, but I'm teaching them as I'm giving freedom, if that makes sense. I'm not completely blocking them from things that their peers are doing. Yeah. And but I'm not giving them Instagram, for God's sakes. I'm not giving them TikTok. Like, that's asinine. And my daughter's 15 and a half. So most 15 and a half year olds have that stuff. But no, I'm not doing that. So that's just stupidity, in my opinion.
Kristen, I've mentioned this before, but I had someone who gave their 12-year-old daughter, let her get on TikTok and gave her a cell phone, basically. And it wasn't 3 weeks she got a dick pic in the 6th grade. And,
oh, dear Lord.
And, we're talking, but it's so hard to say I told you so. But my gosh, you got to think, parents. And here's the other thing about social media. Your worth equals your popularity. Attention equals love. You feel loved if people are liking your posts. And then image matters more than character. That sums up the dangerous formula that we see with social media many times.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and to your point earlier, many teens spend more time managing perception than developing identity. And you ask me how I handle this with my kids as well. I also tell them you need to be confident in saying like, hey, are you on TikTok? No, I don't do that nonsense, right? Like you need to be able to be confident in saying that you don't partake in something. I had a high school boyfriend where all my friends were smoking pot and he was very straight-laced. And he was like my first serious boyfriend. And he goes, I'm not a pot smoking turkey. And he said it with such confidence. And I was like, I found that very attractive. And it wasn't like he was saying, no, I don't. You know what I mean? It's all about the delivery. Own it.
That is gold. That is absolute gold. You know how I avoided drugs, and I wasn't much of a drinker in college because I was competing martial arts. So I would use that. Number one, it could make me cool with the girls, but also I would always go, yeah, I've got a tournament next weekend. I can't do it. And it was just cool. But I like what you're saying even better, that they just stand up and show that, yeah, this is my position. I stand for it. I believe in it. And here it is.
Yeah.
Give us another dirty lesson, Kristen. Give us dirty lesson number 2.
Number 2. So a reputation is what people think you are. Character is who you are when no one is watching. I love that.
That's a tough one. It's awesome. Let's look at the loss of accountability. We talked about holding kids accountable. Let's talk a little bit about that. Yeah.
I even the other night, like if we're talking about parenting, I had asked my son to lock up the house, right? Because he was the last one downstairs. And so I came down, even though he said, yeah, no problem. I came down and he goes, what are you doing? I go, inspecting what I expect. And then I smiled and went back upstairs because he had done it all. And he was like, okay. So that is partially like we need to be doing that. Like give these set expectations, and then you do for at least for quite a while in the beginning until they're older. You need to inspect what you expect constantly.
Yeah, you do. Kristen, I've been doing a deep study on patterns. And there's cognitive patterns, and we don't even realize it, but a lot of what we do throughout life happens before age 6 because we get these patterns set in our brain. And what parents have to do is look for a pattern with your child. Are they repeatedly saying mistruths? Are they fudging? Are they can't even sit and have a conversation with you. They want to eat in their room. They want to there's all kinds of patterns that are being ingrained that you got to help them sit and say, look at me, we're going to have a conversation. We're going to talk. And you can start to establish better patterns, but also you can redo patterns. But it's difficult. Once a kid gets older, it's very difficult. That became hard for me because after the divorce, it's real hard to want to sit at the table with just you and your daughter. And I remember I fell into the slump where we would put on a TV show and just watch TV on the couch. So we had to start recognizing that and realize we got to eat. And I still cherish even we go out and eat. It's the best conversations. There's something about food, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, for centuries, food brings people together. I think that's great, Ron. And, we talk about kids that are in the bedroom all the time, right? Like, I'm glad you brought that up because that's concerning. And, I really feel like, as parents, you have to say, why are my kids in the bedroom all the time? Well, it's not just a typical teenager. I wasn't in my room 24/7. My kids aren't in their room 24/7. And I think one of the reasons is, growing up, my house was a comfortable environment. Are we creating a comfortable environment made of truth and transparency and some acceptance, right? Or are we creating an environment where our children can't be themselves or they don't feel comfortable with you and or with themselves? And so when you see your kid hiding off in their room, just know that that's not typical behavior. It's maybe become typical, which is unfortunate. But you got to break that.
And, Kristen, it's easy. you're tired and you're like, yeah, just go to your room, play your video games, do this. And I tell everyone parenting is the highest form of leadership. It's also the most challenging because you're making decisions like every minute or so. You're deciding, should I let them do this? How do I respond to that? It's a challenge, but people who try, people who seek knowledge and stuff, set the boundaries, hold them accountable. You can do it, balancing that with love. You can produce, it's designed for you to have great productive citizens, great people, teach them to dream big and all that. But don't allow all these little things to destroy this wonderful person that you brought in to the world. It's deep and it's powerful. Hey, Kristen, let me ask you a question. Looking back at that documentary, were you stunned? I was stunned, of course, at the parenting, but after the fact. Now, keep in mind, folks, if you haven't watched it, this young lady has crashed into her car, and they do forensics, and it shows she never hit the brakes. And there had been threats before that she, wanted to kill him, her boyfriend. Now we've got this innocent kid who seemed like such a great kid. He seemed so full of life. He's in the back seat. He's killed as well. So in the trial revealed that she murdered them. Now maybe she was committing suicide. We don't know. It's a crazy situation. But 3 months later, she's dressed like in morgue attire for Halloween or birthday, I don't remember. So there was just crazy behavior. But then they interviewed the parents after the fact. How did you feel about that interview?
So her parents, or
it was her parents.
Well, it was just more enabling, right? Trying to explain away her behavior. And that's what I saw. It was enabling after enabling. And then, I do think my impression of her parents were they're pot smoking turkeys. I'll use my ex-boyfriend's language. For sure. And so they didn't see anything wrong with that. And that was pretty apparent. It was chilling, actually, Ron, to see them explain away her acting like every day, like, nothing had happened after killing 2 people.
It was unbelievable to me. I think I was more angered by that, the aftermath of that. I get it. You're naive parents. You think your little girl's perfect. But then when she's killed 2 people and you're still acting like it was no big deal, that's the part that infuriated me. And then, Kristen, give me your thoughts on this. And it confirms everything we said about social media. There is this huge social media campaign, Free Mackenzie, and all of these people. Now, there's, of course, the opposite side. There always is. But there are tons of people like, she got a mistrial. They shouldn't have never locked her up, or anything. She would never do this again. That you also have to think about the message you're sending to other teenagers. That's why I said everyone should watch this. What do you think about those groups who rise up and now they're, against her getting convicted and going to prison?
It's so odd. And this happens all the time. The only time I would ever do that, Ron, did you see that one police officer heated up fish in the precinct microwave? And so another police officer pointed the gun at him, and then he got fired.
I saw that you posted, and you said, "Who puts fish?" That was.
I don't know the guy's name, but I say free him personally, because that is a crime to put fish in a public microwave. But that's the only soapbox. I mean, I'm half kidding. Obviously, I'm not into pointing guns at.
I did laugh at that, to be honest with you. I thought it was pretty funny.
That's the only soapbox I would get on in that. But no, I really, when people do that. What comes to mind is someone that has no life, right? I also think it's people that may see that in their own homes. They may see that happening with their children. And so when you can put yourself in the shoes of someone else, you're going to try to protect them because God forbid that happen in your own household. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I was going to bring in, you tied right in. There's several ways we can look at, I call it childhood programming. I mentioned patterns, but this is what people tend to do. You follow suit with what your parents did, or you rebel against that. You're the extreme opposite. And it seems that people have trouble finding that balance. Either they're angry because their parents were too strict, so I'm going to let my kids do anything, or vice, the opposite of that. I'm going to be very strict because my parents were too liberal. In life, leadership, everything we talk about, things are about balance and having that common sense that's uncommon now. Let me throw in dirty lesson number 3.
Yeah.
Children don't need perfect parents. They need courageous parents. And in the culture that we live in, just like you teaching your children to have a rebuttal, a response when people say you're not on TikTok, I think we have a courage problem in our whole country. And Kristen, I was naive. I'm going to be honest with you because I'm surrounded by government people, federal law enforcement, people who are pretty brave in general. And when COVID happened, when I saw, and I don't want to get on a soapbox here, I'm just saying I was stunned at the fear. Like it was total fear. We were frozen in fear. And I did a post, Kristen, at that time. I don't think I've ever told you this, but I had fear up on this big board. And I said, I don't care. I don't know what this thing is yet. I mean, it was the first 2 weeks when I did the post. I said, I don't know what this is. But guys, don't let fear be the driving force. And beautiful. Anyway, it wasn't at that time. And as it progressed, it got even worse, the comments on it. But I didn't take it down, and I still believe it. Like, no matter what happens, Kristen, I don't want to be paralyzed by fear. So I think parents are afraid of the other parents. They're afraid of we see the group think, well, so-and-so lets their kid do this. I better let my kid. Parents, if you're listening, it's time to take a stand. Get some courage, and you parent the way you believe is right, not by the way the people down the street. Kristen.
I am so glad you said that. I was put in this position just the other day. My son slept over at a friend's house, one of his friends since he was 3 years old. I trust the parents. They're wonderful. And the mom knows me well enough, and she respects me. She said, are you okay if the boys walk to the grocery store down the street together? We've been letting our son do this. I wanted to check in with you first, and I'm really glad she did, because I could have said, oh, yeah, go ahead, because I didn't want to stand out. But I said, I'm so glad you asked. I'm not there yet, but I really appreciate where you're at. Maybe in a year, I'll be comfortable with that. And that does take courage, even on my end, because I don't want to be that pain in the ass mom that is bubble wrapping her children. But at the same time, in my gut, if it feels wrong, you have to stand for that, right? And I even talked to my son about it, and he was like, oh yeah, I'm not ready for that. I'm like, thank you for understanding where I'm coming from. I'm like, in a year or so. And he's like, yeah, that makes sense when I have a growth spurt, so we're talking through, I made the decision, but I'm talking to him through, like walking through my thought process on it. And I think we need to be more comfortable doing things like that. I could have easily gone against my gut and said, yeah, go for it, just to not stand out, right?
That's exactly right.
But I don't do that. And I think more people need to be emboldened not to.
Kristen, that's great. More people need to do that. I think that's the key to parenting. Get involved, be courageous. Don't try to, you can't keep up with the Joneses when it comes to parenting. You've got to be your own self, follow your own instincts, think things through. And also, I tell everyone, children don't have a Fourth Amendment privilege. You look at that phone, you check on what's going on. It's okay to do that. I literally had a parent, had a 12-year-old, and they were feeling guilty. No, it was a 14-year-old, feeling guilty about going through their phone. I said, are you kidding me? And I definitely pushed them off the diving board, as they say, because they're like, you're right. Yeah. Yes, I'm going to do it. I was like, good.
Yeah.
Go do it.
Absolutely, Ron. We have to. We are leading, like to your point earlier, we have to inspect what we expect. Otherwise, it's just a free-for-all, an unchecked free-for-all. And, going back to the film or the docuseries that we're talking about, that tragedy featured in the crash. We talked about the 2 deaths. It left multiple families absolutely devastated. And again, to your point, lives changed forever. And there's so many opinions about how the case may differ. The opinions of some think she's innocent and it wasn't intentional, and others think she's a stone cold murderer. Like, I think you and I are probably aligned there. But there are lessons about parenting that we have dove into, and I'm so glad we did, because it's just, it needs to be talked about as much as possible. Accountability, relationships, and really, what you hit on a lot, Ron, is that culture. What culture are we creating for the next generation?
No, it's true. And I would say this to parents, we feel sorry for that girl. I think that if she had different parents and different atmosphere, she wouldn't be who she is. I think she's a victim of all of that. But we have to send a message like, this poor girl's sitting in prison. We're paying the taxpayers are paying for it, but we have to send a message to other teenagers. And I think it is incumbent upon you to get with your parents, get with your teenagers and watch this. Make sure they're capable. But you need to watch this. It's very powerful.
I agree with you very much, Ron. And it was powerful. Even my mom watched it and she was just disgusted, right? And it's sad. It's sad all around.
Prevalent. So prevalent.
It is.
Well, guys, I'm so glad. I wanted to do this the minute I'm watching this. I'm like, I got to contact Kristen. I was going to send it to you, and then I talked to Kristen. She watched it. So
yeah,
I love when a plan comes together.
Yes, and it's one of those. It's such a good docuseries that it's almost like I want to watch it a second time to see what I missed, because there's so much in there, that so many lessons to be had from that. Yeah,
it's true. It's very true. All right, everyone, go be good parents and be the leader you're meant to be.
We'll see you next week.
The Dirty Side of Leadership podcast is brought to you by Forward Operations. If you'd like to book Ron or Kristen for speaking events, training, or executive coaching, visit forwardoperations.com. Be the leader you're meant to be.